What's up, folks at home? Welcome back to the channel. It is springtime, almost. It is March. It is time to break down the baits that we are gonna use to catch bass in the month of March. We're gonna go top 5-ish. Got some bonus baits in there. I'm gonna talk about where I find these fish, what baits I'm throwing to catch them. Let's dive in, let's go. So March is an interesting month. One, you've got the ice coming off up north, down south. You might even be rolling into the post-spawn, but we're gonna talk about kind of that pre-spawn into the spawn period. Fish have one thing on the brain after the ice comes off, and that is the spawn. They're motivated, and they're going to position by where they're gonna spawn in about a month or two, depending on where you are at. So, when I go out to the lake, first thing that I'm gonna look at is water temperature and water clarity, because those are gonna tell me two things. One, this time of year, I'm going to be hunting the warmest water I can find. Up north here, where there's man-made channels, that's where the bite's gonna be. If you're fishing a northern natural lake that has no man-made channels and just a big bowl, your bite's gonna be a little bit different. So I'm going to break down kind of the two different bites that I look for in the month of March and what baits that I'm going to use. But first off, I'm looking at transition areas. No matter where I am in the country, I'm looking for transition areas. If you can draw a box from where fish are gonna spawn to where they wintered to where they're and how they're gonna get there, you're gonna have what's gonna look like a triangle. That triangle, Brandick Polinick talks about triangle theory all the time, is gonna help you locate fish. But what I'm looking for are rest stops for the fish from where they were in the winter to where they're going to be in the spring. I don't wanna go straight to where I think they're going to be. I don't wanna start where they were in the winter. I wanna start on those places in between. And my number one way to find fish on transition areas is a crankbait. I love speed cranking in the spring. First bait that I'm gonna pick up is the Spro Rock Crawler 55, and it's going to be in a crawfish color. I'm throwing crawfish color from now until the bass come off the beds, because when the water is in the upper 40s, 50s, red is magic. Now, I am going to try to find any hardcover transition area spot that I can find. And I am going to grind this bait through there. I'm looking for pure reaction strikes. When fish move into transition areas, they're looking to feed up before they go and spawn. If I go to a place and I start catching little buck males on this, I need to look deeper. I'm gonna move out a little bit. If I go to a place and start hanging on females, big ones, that's the bait that they're going to bite. Literally, that Spro Rock Crawler 55 is great in cold water. It's great grinding anywhere where I can find rock, gravel, and 8 to 12 feet of water this time of year. I'm going to throw this bait. Now, that bait is crucial for me in the springtime. Great thing. But I'm gonna rotate a stable of baits through these different areas. The next bait that I'm gonna pick up in a transition area, especially if I've got some clear water, is the jerkbait. And the jerkbait is literally going to clean up fish that are looking up. Sometimes when those fish get to transition areas, they want to feed up. If they want to feed up, they will come up and get a jerkbait. I'm throwing a jerkbait 9 times out of 10 in clear water that has some translucence to it, right? We see this Megabass Vision 110 right here. It has translucence in its body, which means you can see through it. That's the bait I'm gonna pick up. I'm not gonna throw really loud and aggressive jerkbaits until the water gets a little bit warmer. I wanna throw jerkbaits that look realistic. The 110 does a fantastic job of doing that, and it's translucent, which I like. There's a whole bunch of other baits. We're gonna get into a dedicated jerkbait video later, but the second bait I'm gonna rotate through those transition areas is the jerkbait. The third bait that comes into play now is going to be the finesse jig. So after I throw the crankbait, after I throw the jerkbait, the last bait that I'm going to throw through there is a finesse jig. Now, I am going to make this jig super light this time of year. 1/8 ounce, right? 1/4 ounce jig. crawfish colors. I want a chunk trailer that's not doing too much on there, but I am going to literally drag this agonizingly slow through those areas. Now, why am I not throwing a Ned rig? Why am I not throwing other stuff? Because there's a different bite for that, and I'm going to talk about what that means. Literally, that 8 to 12 foot of water finesse jig, just dragging it. I'm talking 3 minutes a cast, dragging it uber slow. Anytime you hit a piece of cover, fudge it up there, because bass will suck onto that cover and they will stay there. The finesse jig is a win. So those are your traditional baits for transition areas, but I don't have a lot of rock in my lakes. I don't live on shield lakes. I don't live on southern impoundments. I don't have a lot of cover in my lakes that is not grass or a small shelf in between grass. But the problem when the ice comes off is there's no grass. So where do we find fish in northern body of waters? Well, the key here is fish in northern body of waters flood the shallows. And we're talking man-made channels, docks, shallow transition areas between lakes. They literally come to choke points. And they come to choke points because you know what's in the choke points? Bait. One of my favorite patterns coming up this time of year when the ice comes off is I'm going to drive around until I can smell shad in a channel. And then I'm going to stop and I'm going to fish that channel hard. And what I'm going to throw is a small 2.5 to 3 inch swim bait. My choice right here is the Crush City Baits The Mayor in 2.5 with a 1/4 ounce upgrade jig head by Ebb and Flow. I'm going to throw this because fish in the North Country push shad into pockets and channels this time of year to feed. There are channels that I'm not going to tell you about on Tippy Lake where I literally catch most of my fish in the spring, and what I'm looking for is bass that have specifically pinned up shad in those channels. I'm going to throw a swim bait first because I want to be very unassuming. I want it to look like a minnow that has gotten out of containment, if you will, and needs to be contained by those bass because they'll pin up hundreds of bait fish in the back. This is a great option right here. So first things first, I'm gonna throw that swim bait. Second thing I'm gonna throw in those channel mouths is the chatterbait. The chatterbait will catch fish all the way down into the 30-degree water. I'm gonna throw it with a straight tail trailer on it. Most oftentimes I'm throwing the Rattleworm 4.5. I like that mix between green pumpkin and white because literally those shad have dark backs and clear stomachs to translucent tails. This does a great job with that. Now, the chatterbait is a great active presentation to throw in those channels when those fish are really looking to eat. Now, that is one specific thing that I'm looking for. Now, here's your sucker shot, and it's the way that I catch 99% of my fish when other guys can't this time of year. As the days get warmer up here in the North Country, those fish suspend in the higher columns in and around the channels and in and around in the docks. And what they're doing is they're getting in the warmest possible water that they can be in. That top 6 to 9 inches of the water column is super warm in those channels. We're talking 8 to 10 degrees warmer than that on the main body. Those fish won't bite anything. You can throw anything in the world at them, they won't bite. What I found is there's one bait they will bite, and it is literally the fluke. And when I fish this fluke, I run it Texas rigged weightless, or I fish it nose hooked. I've done so many videos on this. It's my sucker shot. But when I throw this fluke, it's like I'm throwing a jerkbait, right? Those fish, for whatever reason, that will not react to anything else, will react to this bait. And I'm throwing it weightless. I am throwing it and twitch pausing it like a jerkbait. And let me tell you, I have filled out a lot of limits throwing this bait. You'll catch a lot of smaller fish. You'll catch a lot of bigger fish. But this is the only bait that I've found that really gets a feed response from those bass. They won't touch anything else. So you have competing patterns. You have deep transition areas. You have the channel bite. Now let's talk about the bluegill bite. The bluegill bite is the last thing that I'm looking for in terms of pre-spawn bites up here in the North Country. And bluegill like to cloud up this time of year on that last sets of vegetation before you get into those shallow areas. So we're talking 6 to 8 feet of water. And what I want to see here is, where did the guys finish on the ice? Wherever the last place that they were catching fish, that's where I'm going to start. Because bass and pike up here in the North Country hunt bluegill. Here we've got the chatterbait Evo, 3/8 ounce, and I love to throw it with the fat Albert grub on it right here in that red-orange color. And I throw this because it's going to allow me to replicate a bluegill in the water very nicely. Bass are going to feed up on those bluegill. They're also going to eat them with a vengeance up here in the North Country before they get on the spawning bed, because they're simply preparing themselves to not eat for a hot second. The chatterbait Evo does a good job. I love the red in here. I love the day glow orange blade. It does a good job around bluegill. The other thing that I'm going to throw is the City Clean Up Craw. And this bait, Caden made me a believer in it. I'm going to throw it on a jig. I'm also going to throw it on that ebb and flow head right there, because it's going to do a fantastic job of looking like a bluegill swimming down through the column, looking like a crawfish being out there, but picking it around with a 1/4 ounce ebb and flow head on there like that is really, really, really going to generate some bites for you guys. So we have 3 different patterns that I look for whenever I go out on the lake up here in the northern Midwest, right? Wherever you at, try to find what pattern those fish are in, try to replicate that pattern, and you can fish that pattern all over the lake. Guys, I want to thank you for hanging out with us today. Hopefully you got something out of this. We got a bunch of exciting stuff coming up. I'm super stoked about it. We'll see you guys out there.